Welcome to another pod about construction contracting. Construction has much complexity and numerous components. Potentially, this can lead to many innovations, improving quality, safety, productivity. However, according to the National Bureau of Statistics in Australia in 2020, the industry's intellectual property value, including software, is approximately $1 billion. It is about 1/4 of manufacturing's. And ranks 13 out of 18 market sectors in this country. Certainly there are challenges to overcome for a construction inventor, including a negative perception about their innovation and its worth, and the integration of this new product, into its intended market. Nevertheless, if creators perform a historical review of novel creations, it is valuable. It's a valuable starting point. And it costs almost nothing to read the record. And that's what this book is about. How others approach the vocation shows an array of choices. A well-developed product's recorded history is invaluable. What worked, what did not, and why are good landmarks of which to consider. Walter Isaacson synthesizes and narrates this journey of people who have gone before us in the digital technology world. He starts in the 19th century with Ada Lovelace and notes many successors to her and finishes the book with an acclamation that her vision was fulfilled. Her vision, which is manifested, that machines perform logical tasks while humans work on intuitive and creative endeavors, such as information gathering, planning, coordinating, motivating, whatever those things are. Through his body of work, this is Isaacson's work, he really has the credibility to write a book like this, to review and summarize the march of information technology over the last 200 years. He is the president of a well-known institute called Aspen. It's a center for promoting, quote, a free, just, and equitable society. And it's nonpartisan and non-ideological. He wrote Albert Einstein's autobiography, which I read, and also Stephen Jobs, which I also read. And so both were well received by many people, and I appreciate his depth of understanding and his detail orientation. You see, this book is more than a recording of the information technology revolution, which we've all witnessed, most of us have witnessed in the last 30 years. The author explains innovation in three general categories, and these are three components which he looks at as leverage points in the whole march. One is the vision of information technology, the visionaries and what they thought. Two is the approaches they took. Some of them were funded by government, some of them were funded privately, some of them were funded by universities, which is quasi-public-private. And then also the personalities of the people that assisted this march. He looked at this historical analysis and gave us a good story, a good narration of it. These three areas can be applied to many industries, including construction, how innovation happens. So innovation occurs for many reasons, as we know, such as personalities involved. The convergence of ideas with technology to enable a vision. Vision is really what we're talking about, to accomplish far into futures. Personalities have visions. Let's make sure we make that distinction. But those visions have to be articulated and accepted, not lectured or preached to and forced upon people. That vision is real. It's achievable. And this last component, vision, has been added to each by each successive generation over these 200 years. From the math-centric machine in the 1830s, created by really Ada, to today's digital offering, which continues to impress in its rapidity and its scope, and its reach. The first vision noted may have been Ida's, as we suggested. She intuited that an analytical machine could solve many math problems with less human intervention. Not only a large number of challenges, but also those involving symbols, common and uncommon problems, things that may be non-traditional to numbers, and really solving more with the same number of people. Information technology continues to target the problems of people engaging in the rising complexity of information transfer analysis, with constantly growing efficiency rates. So as we look at the march of efficiency by machines and their, again, really information technology, we can see that, it was a very low efficiency many, many years ago to unbelievable rates of problem solving today. You see, there's opportunities and constraints governing information technology. Material sciences and nanotechnology have contributed significantly, and that's part of the book. Silicon, the realization that silicon is a very valuable mineral or material for computing is something that is taken for granted now. But back then, there was great debate, and there's a few pages talking about the back and forth between different types of material. So, really the leaders that we mentioned in this saw the implications of the advancement of materials and its implications for, the bits and bytes transmitting and being computed and calculated through computers. Overall component efficiency processes, really electronic configurations and human interfaces are constantly considered and then embraced or discarded. So said differently, there's many components here as we look at a setup of information technology, and each advancement obviously is a celebration and an achievement, but each failure is obviously a little bit of a victory because we won't go down that path again. We won't build technology upon inefficient or unreasonable demands of certain materials or configurations. The new iterations have a lifeblood and really are the lifeblood of innovations. Some of them are incremental, some of them are very small, helpful as we leap from one to another. Much in the 1950s, slowly brought the speed of computing up, and then some of it has been leaping, and some of those are just tremendous, thought victories and advancements. But all of it is good. All of it is a lifeblood of innovation. Building an industry culture of innovation is a strong leverage point for increasing value for all shareholders. Isaacson counts out three parties involved in the help of the stakeholders of helping the industry. One is government, two is market, and three is peer inventors. So, government being partially universities, the market being all sorts of people, some capitalists, some consumers, some innovators, some associations, and then peer inventors, just individuals that really are inventing allied inventions, things related to what you're doing, and they're really in this ecosystem of invention. So they all help, they all assist, they all advance the thinking of inventions and innovation. And so all should be equally promoted as part of the solution. The promotion of one over the other two is suboptimal. That is, to saying that the government is the source of all innovation would be inaccurate. Saying that peer inventors are the source of or the majority of all innovation is inaccurate, and certainly, the market can or cannot be very efficient at times. So, an equal balance of those would be appropriate or optimal. In New South Wales, where we're talking from, the government has created programs to assist inventors in accelerating their development and market deal-making processes. Furthermore, the public awareness communicates to those tangentially involved who may have a related idea to improve a creation. Said differently, there is money out there that will support people to invent. It's not 100% subsidy, but it is an encouragement to say this is critical for us in our future. You have an incentive to do so, to act in this way, which again is this innovative thought process. Innovation is a team endeavor many times. The lone inventor who carries the product from idea to market has a very poor probability. It's poor history. Those people are rare. They need teams of people assisting them, helping them, looking out for them. Sometimes for various reasons like money and incentives. Other times because they want to be the first. So teams are important. Investors do not bet on a single inventor being successful. So if you have a good thought and you've developed it yourself and all that, that's going to be less exciting than a group of people who have really nurtured this idea for a year or two and going to investors and saying, this is what we've created, this is the development so far. So one of the things the investors always want to know is about the team members on the team, about learning on someone else's nickel. And so, if you've got 10 people on a team and 9 of them are just fresh from the university and really haven't worked for anybody else besides, their professors, their university and doing some things, and one of them's worked for somebody else, that's not going to be exciting for the investors. They want everybody, to have some pedigree from, various places, hopefully not the same place, where there's a real mix of ideas and dynamics and attitude and culture. But they've all been successful in those places. They've learned on somebody else's nickel. The raw graduate is worth more after they have industry experience. You would agree, right? That is, their idealism is tempered by failure and confidence, and it's boosted by success. So they understand the complexities and the uneven pace of innovation. And so those people, those graduates with experience, are more tempered, more measured. Obviously, know that something's going to take a year, because it takes a year, not, well, we think we can get it done in three months, and that promise obviously cannot be fulfilled at the 3-month mark. So again, there's more trustworthiness, let's say, than idealism, because somebody has been tempered by industry experience. It's important to say that if the young inventor has learned the foundations first of the industry and then the advanced thinking, they can bring transcendent ideas to the present. So, somebody who has worked really at the bare bones level of, building, let's say, a computer, and then is in a company where they're using innovative techniques to build better computers, then you would say there's some real context that the person brings, in which they will not make mistakes they made when building simple computers to these advanced computers, as an example. They can create more value. And when they create value, there'll be a quicker adoption by the market, which is a goal of a lot of people. Each inventor group should possess 3 skills to create their product and service. And this is history, to bring it to reality. Excellent ideation energy. That is, they have a lot of things they see and a lot of ideas they have. Again, they've had many things and maybe a book of things. And then they have robust development skills. That is, they can take it in the lab and they can rapidly develop it and actually make it real, make it work, make a beta version of it. And then the third is the same group has to have strong business moxie, including deal making. Can they convert that great idea, that strong developed working unit, into a deal with someone, somebody, some company? And so the single inventor that can deliver that is rare, right? They got great ideas. They can sit in a lab for many hours and get many things done, and then they can go out there and make some deals that really make sense, because they have that kind of dimension to their thinking. Very rare. That's why teams are more exciting for investors. You see, this list suggests that more than one person must be involved. Investors know that a product's chances of success is what they are wagering on. So again, a $5 million investment in a product, they're wagering on the team's ability to do these 3 things. A team of people with profound skills in the needed areas increases the odds. The quality of the team perfecting the invention helps determine the amount of funding and its disbursement schedule. Again, if you really can bring things along quickly, and you can plainly explain it to people who don't have the understanding you do, you certainly are going to excite some investors, because the investors can understand it, the market can understand it, the manufacturers of the product can understand it, or the potential manufacturers of the product. So, one of the things that in the ideation stage is defining gaps in the market, and the innovation will fulfill that uninhabited area. It's very important to have that, kind of thinking. Again, experience is going to give you a realization of those gaps or those bare spots. Industries can benefit from partnering with allied ones, and this is one of the lessons of the book. This is known as sister industry strategy. For example, taking a lesson from the silicon chip industry from the 1950s to the 1980s, incremental improvements and cost reductions were unprecedented. That is, we really learned how to make smaller chips and more powerful chips. As a result, the computer industry benefited greatly, because the people that were making chips and their sister, the computer industry, were really important to each other. One was making a base product, the other one was putting products out to the public that needed more of their chips. So again, if the computer industry sales rose because the chips were better, then they ordered more chips. So really circular. Another example was the automobile industry and the oil industry. Both sectors won as vehicles became cheaper and petrol stations increased in the number of the 20th century. So more petrol stations mean we could travel farther in our car, travel more on vacation, further with confidence, and again, buying more gasoline because we end up, traveling further and further away from our home. And as a country, those two industries benefited from each other. It should help the construction industry if we have a sister strategy to facilitate it. Certainly construction innovation would benefit from aligning with manufacturing. I think so. If we can do more industrialized construction, however that looks and does, but we can make the manufacturing sector a sister to us or a partner to us, then we can take advantage of their expertise and our need for more efficient, more safe, more cost-effective construction product in the market. This partner sector can assume part of the risk and receive part of the reward. Manufacturing comes to mind, because of modular construction and prefabrication's value. We see that in places like the UK and Sweden and other places in the world. Many times innovation has been a blending of the arts and sciences, if you didn't know. And so people who innovate use really two approaches. And this is my realization. It's really two ways to come up with great ideation. One is learn by doing. Charles and Ray Eames were furniture designers in the 40s, and they took the learning by doing mentality to new heights and celebrated collaborations throughout their careers. So again, if you feel like that's the way you invent, is to play with something and to fiddle with it and to try odd combinations, that is actually an established pathway by history. There's also combined thinking of the creative arts and sciences. So George Carver, a famous agriculturalist and he was famous for many other things, balanced these two interests, these two things that he liked, these two talents. And he had the skills of observation, experimentation, and replication, and communication, and applied art and science to what he was doing. He came up with peanut butter, some other things that were very, very important. Now, I don't know if you know this, but peanut butter gave people protein that was assurable. So, you could certainly dry fish and make beef jerky, or you could have peanut butter. And so people are able to have a ready-made source of protein because he created, this product called peanut butter. Let's talk about another personality, Vannevar Bush. He stated that the innovation is a linear process, and Bush was a person that was in many leading positions in information technology through many years. But he said it's a linear process and emanates from basic research. And so, his personality, his approach was to really fund more university and government research. And he really felt that, if we could iterate it enough, we could figure out what the better path is. So again, we have lots and lots of intensity on labs and on field testing. The most promising combination will be developed through this process. From there, the market engagement and deal making give it life. So again, it's such a valuable product, such a best way to put something together. It has this greater than average output. It has this phenomenal value. It will just be obvious to people in the market, and it'll give it life. We have present day examples of this kind of innovative iteration, and one of them is the hub innovation model. It was created partly from necessity. This was World War II, the war, security, logistics, lack of communication alternatives, all sorts of reasons why the hub, bringing people together in one place, and co-locating great thinkers and doers. And so we have those examples over the years. The Manhattan Project was one. There were some computing projects, obviously, in Washington, D.C. that Isaacson talks about, and he's documented. Certainly having a lot of these thinkers that are ideation people and development people, lab people, market development people, they're really not socially compatible. They're different personalities. And congregating them is a risk, but it does provide regular engagement. And it proved to be efficacious. It proved to be the best way to do it. So during World War II, this approach was manifested by the militaries across the globe. Scientists, information technologists, machinists, and those in between created rapid technology advancement. Post-war, Bell Labs really made some prodigious strides and outputs, but they were facilitated by these two groups working closely together. Two strange groups. The scientists and the technologists, and they exchanged business ideas and discoveries. There are stories in the book that are really fun and interesting, but they were funded by Bell Labs, which is a profit-minded entity. And also assisted by the government, which had a vested interest in advancing information technology. They talk a lot about zeroing in or knowing ballistics for the military's weapons as a first reason to have this information technology, this thinking. It's very, very difficult to do that. It's very involved if you do it by hand. Computers offered a chance for them to do it efficiently and basically be more efficient in giving wounds to the world. In the middle of war, apparently that's very important. Overall, there are two camps of innovators, the open share crowd and the capitalists. So if you look at two camps of people that look at innovation differently, these are the two. The open share crowd, which we know is some of this maybe dark web people, I'm not sure. And there's people that are obviously avowed capitalists that say there's value here and we ought to harvest some of that value and do some things with that money that we receive. They have peaceably coexisted, as you know. At times there's been a little bit of a tussle, a war, a battle. And certainly there's some irritation, or always will be irritation between the two. So under an improved innovation culture in construction contracting, which we reside in, again, we've got these capitalists and open share people. They should be able to continue this arrangement, again, with irritation, but there are people that really want open sharing. There are people that want, again, to harvest their hard work of innovation. The informal rule that innovation is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration holds true. That is, the people with the great ideas many times don't advance them to market. And so there is value for people to take a risk, to produce a product before there's even the first sale. And so both camps are needed. Certainly, if we're going to have innovation in general or information technology in particular prosper, these two have to exist, and be recognized for their value. Okay, so these these products and services that we talk about, and have to be tinkered. They have to be judged on their utility. Your next invention, your next iteration of this current product is probably going to be better. I think 90% of the time it does improve because we have time to think about it. But at some time you have to, produce it and offer it to the market and see what the reaction is. So hackers are a part of information innovation, and they've been on the periphery. Certainly, the hackers give the capitalist, especially in virus protection software, things like that, a feedback loop and help them perfect their product against this insidious problem. So the important part is that this ecosystem is alive and well, and certainly has to be balanced with each other. So what's important is some hackers have morphed into the capitalist group as we've seen, which is interesting to me, through ransomware actors and other ways. So I don't know. It's do people evolve from one to the other? I'm not sure, but it's an interesting dynamic. Let me say this: true innovators distrust centralized power and bureaucrats. That's been noted by Isaacson. Between the senior venture capitalist who has a real interest in bringing a beneficial idea to the market, or to the young app developer working in a home office, a office in his home or her home, those who have the power to terminate are not loved. So both of those people, the young app developer, the senior venture capitalist, don't like the bureaucrat. Those governing do not have a real stake in the game, and many never have innovated. They just, again, they govern, they scrutinize, they regulate. But on the other hand, the inventor's emotion is a large part of the creative thought, and so this is a tool, a good thing, and it never likes to be stopped by a non-innovator. So again, you'll have this tug of war between regulators and innovators and hackers and open share people, and this is very, very normal. So there's a disproportionate amount required development both in the laboratory and in the marketplace costs. So again, we talk about 99% perspiration. This is where most of the energy goes. A lot of mental effort and money. The open share group does not have this in large quantity. So obviously they don't have a venture capitalist bank account. And therefore the capitalists have little competition for those who may know the idea but cannot develop it. However, reasonable security measures should be implemented around developed ideas and stringent ones for market-ready creations. So that's patent laws, that's IP laws. It's important for every innovator to have some sort of security on their invention, whether it's IT or not, it's something else. Isaacson chronicles several unauthorized transfer of innovation of knowledge, such as between Apple and Microsoft. That actually happened. Their user-based interface, or their Windows-based interface, I should say. And then alternatively, the digital technology crown may be categorized differently. Those who believe that journey is the ultimate essence of innovation. This is the way we look back on history and say, was it the journey that we wanted, or was it the $1 billion? There's obviously some innovators that want both. But Elon Musk comes to mind because he does things that are not financially based, and you got to adore that. So the second group, obviously, the reward of money and the celebrity that they get for it is helping continuing this robust ecosystem, because there's people that only work for that end. They don't work for the improvement of their fellow person. They work for the celebrity and the wealth. And that's just got to be a practical part of the ecosystem. So again, open share 100% would not be a viable and ongoing, vibrant system. So, as you know from your life's experience, people are different, and some are very extraordinarily talented. Others are skilled. Others work very hard and they're talented. It is the rare person who is some of the people that I mentioned. So life-changing innovation occurs when these three skills are brought to bear during the product or services emergence. So again, if you've got great experiences, great talent, and then maybe you just think differently and bring all those three to the market, you're going to come up with something that nobody else can. Obviously, a deal maker is less helpful in the lab, and the scientist might be too excited when presenting to investors. So again, we talk about these three things, robust ideation, development in the lab, and then market development. These are skills that are, that are common in people, but they're not excellent in everybody. So somebody obviously could do all three, but only do one well. And so, you got to sense that when you're in the marketplace, you got to sense that, pricing, place, product, and promotion opportunity. There's people that have a very keen sense of that. They work very hard. They make things happen. They give confidence to potential buyers through their work. Obviously, the product is the first place that people gain confidence, but the market development, the application to a specific niche is what a market development person might do better than anyone. In history, the market determines the immediate relevance of innovators, while history gauges their impact in terms of transformative effect, error, and luck. If you look at this whole dynamic of history, what you'll find is that sometimes people were treated unfairly by history, unfairly by luck, unfairly by association. They were a great person with a great idea, but they were with the wrong people who were, stealing their ideas and running off with them. Those are all chronicled in this book. Ada Lovelace was a mathematician by training and passion, and she transitioned her focus to computing machines by curiosity, and that's obviously something an innovator has to have, because not every innovation they have is valuable, right? But maybe it's the fifth one, the 10th one, and it's oh so valuable. But that curiosity drives the iteration, the development, the new idea. And she saw the value of calculating, with a machine. And certainly since math has a constant process at the practical level, that is, when you compute in a certain equation, there's not a different answer. You compute the same variables with the same operators, you're going to have the same result. It's a very constant process. It's hardwired. And that made sense to her to put it to a machine. That was her, inquisitiveness. That's her curiosity. That's her question she has. Could this be, standardized? So it drove her to read a lot of information, and seek others' insights. And there were people around her that helped her with this idea. She wrote some research papers of the day. We would call them research papers there. They were books and other things. So another person that we might look to is Vannevar Bush. He emphasized the absolute value of basic research. We mentioned that before. He was the president of MIT and was a close advisor to U.S. presidents. He was able to influence public policy that energized the sciences. In Isaacson's view, his vision was beneficially more potentially worthy because of the creations it increased. And the breakthroughs happened because of his vision, of his dedicating money and resources and time and focus to the lab. See, in Bush's learning model that I mentioned, the enabler is science and it approaches experimentation with carefully controlled conditions. Because when we have success, we know it wasn't luck, it was carefully controlled. It wasn't something that happened once. We can repeat it because the conditions were carefully controlled. And there was documentation showing that careful control. Giving the entrepreneurs and visionaries clear product information to evaluate, giving the people that might be consumers, buyers of that innovation, a reason to believe it, and maybe even to replicate it themselves to prove that there is value. One of the personalities also, I didn't mention this before, is Pat Haggerty. Some of the older people listening to this, he was a CEO of Texas Instruments in the post-war era, and some of you had TI-80 calculators, I'm sure. He was the first to create a new innovation set of habits, and these were actually attributed to Stephen Jobs later. One of them was bending reality to get people to do more than they thought they could possibly do. Very interesting. If you read Jobs' book, that's throughout. Another thing that Haggerty actually invented or created was creating products that the customer did not know they wanted. So again, a calculator that did certain functions, he could see the niche, he could see the value of it before the consumers did. And so he would point that out, and all of a sudden there would be, again, sales. There would be sales going through the roof in the first week, first month. Stephen Jobs, another personality. Jobs was after a constantly better solution through his example and his speech. Again, he told people they could do more than they actually could. He infuriated employees all the time, especially those who did not know him. There was one story in there about a perceived insult. One talented, strong-willed woman ran to his office, and she was going to do harm, to put it politely, to Steve Jobs. It was noted that Apple Security and a senior executive intervened. But this is the kind of strong personality that was involved in innovation. And you can see the extreme personality probably makes the extreme innovation happen. So he followed Pat Haggerty's example, but with a negative slant to it to bend reality. So it was such a negative thing, he would insult people that they actually took up a weapon against him, let's say. But he also got others to accomplish the impossible. Bill Gates is part of this book. He worked very hard for many years, dropping out of Harvard so he would not miss the computer revolution. Bill believed that he had the talent to win the race in the personal computer market. So that was a lot of confidence. Obviously, nobody had a background in personal computers, so who was to say that he couldn't do it? Because it was novel. But one of the stories about Bill Gates and his counterbalance, Paul Allen, who was also, was a shareholder and an executive and a noted contributor to Microsoft. There was this one story about Bill believed that he would be the math student at Harvard when he started, and Paul Allen's relationship with him was before Microsoft, before Harvard, and so Allen thought about that for a minute and said, "Don't be so sure, but you'll soon find out." So, okay. The visions, approaches, and personalities over the last 200 years have provided rich lessons in information technology innovation. Information technology is a solution looking for problems, and many have already been minimized or eliminated through this technology. The benefits of math have been delivered to those who are not masters of that discipline. This is an example, right? So we can actually compute numbers we have no idea how to calculate on our own with a slide rule or even a calculator, but the computer will do it for us. The total acquisition cost of commercial services has been lowered. So if you look at that, that we are able to do much more with the same number of people, that translates into lower cost of a lot of things, including computers. People isolated in their homes like they were in COVID are less so due to the social media, due to the invention of the internet, the information technology, things that we might take for granted today. Documented and multi-sourced information has led to decreased errors, as we know, as we look for the best price for something, or we look for the best inputs, opinions, the data. We obviously need data to make good decisions. That's all been more available by the information technology boom or journey or improvement. One of the things that we've noted, and Isaacson's really noted, is when you marry seemingly unrelated components, this is really what innovators do and have done in the last decades. Creative art practitioners now pull ideas from unknown cultures and ethics and geographies, and they come up with things that are very interesting to the eye that had never before been considered. Also amateur astronomers can extend their knowledge quickly after the first exposure. They can get more information over the internet of Things, or by information technology than they could before. And those that are disabled, that are physically challenged, now can attain greater capabilities because of a lot of these innovations, including information technology. Potentially in construction, professionals can take technology and the social nature of people, we're seeing some of that now, to enable the craftspeople, equipment operators, and laborers to become safer while producing higher quality work and delivering more value per hour. Indeed, additional items, including visual and written information, interactive data, social networking, and commercial services, have helped in this decade to improve many industries, including construction. These components are not essential for improving quality of life, but offer choice for engagement. And again, we're talking about social media, or we're talking about, maybe even suicide rates in construction, which is very much a problem. But the market, as always, determines the monetary value of everything. It doesn't say that it'll be part of the ecosystem. Sometimes things are sold at zero cost, or they're supported by governments, or just underwritten by the generosity of others. But the point of that is that the market is a pretty good indicator of value. And as you may remember, the owners of Google, or the former owners of Google, it's publicly held now, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, really echoed something that was said previously, such as what Steve Jobs repeated of Mr. Haggerty's saying about bending reality. But Sergey and Larry echoed Vannevar Bush's sentiments from decades earlier when they stated, really the number of documents in the indices has been increasing by many orders of magnitude. But humans' ability to read them has not. Said differently, we are now the bottleneck in information technology. The possibilities are endless. And it's very appropriate. But again, you look at some of these later quotes that we see attributed to later leaders, the ones that are currently known well, and we can trace them back sometimes to people 50, 100 years ago. And it's very interesting. So in all of this, Ada's vision was fulfilled. And I think, and Walter Isaacson more importantly says this, she'd have looked around today to information technology, to computing, software, hardware, and she really would have loved this third millennium. Thank you for listening. I hope you had a great lesson or lessons in this pod. Thank you. Share any comments that you might think appropriate. What we'd like to do is hear from you, improve the learning focus and quality of some of the things we're presenting. Thank you, and take good care.